some more.
Yo, what's good, people? Izzy Max here, back with some more Shadow League content. This is week 4. We had a pretty good win last week, so this week we are fighting, I believe Nicholas is the name on the actual team sheet. Over here you'll see Maria. She is bringing a team of Lipard, Driftblim, Miltank, Obstagoon, Mamoswine, and Inteleon. As you see that I'm bringing is a Life Orb Raichu, Choppleberry Cobalion, Choice Scarf Darmanitan, Focus Sash Indeedee, White Herb Flapple, and a Babiri Berry Comfey. Big shout outs to my friend Matt for helping me team build this week. I had, I think, only 2 hours to do it because my opponent wanted to play, which is fine. I prefer playing early in the week anyway. But this is the team that we kind of came up with. You'll see the movesets as we go forward in the match. Just know we were hard expecting Rain Dance Lipard with Kingdra, but we don't see it here. And I was afraid to set terrains or stuff for the Driftblim, but as you'll see later on in the match, it is weakness policy. So with that said, that's what you see here for my 6. That is what I expected and didn't see. So I came into this match kind of nervous a little bit. So I'm just gonna go Indeedee Raichu. It seemed the safest. It hits everything decently well other than the Obstagoon. And then I'm gonna bring kind of like my offensive 1-2 punch in the back with Cobalion and Darmanitan. And that's kind of what we're gonna rock with for game 1. So he kind of leads expecting my psychic spam core. Because I have brought it a lot, it is still a very good core with Pincurchin, which I didn't bring this week. So my opponent is leading with the 2 dark types. But my Indeedee is very, very physically bulky with the Focus Sash. So I'm just going to follow me. Both these mons are physical. As you see the Obstruct, luckily I'm not attacking into that slot. So the Rising Voltage comes out, does about half to the, or more than half to the Lipard, probably about 75%. As the Foul Play comes off, not doing too much to the Indeedee. I'm just going to do the same play again. Other than I think I actually go into the Lipard. Yeah, I need that thing gone because I'm afraid it could spread paralysis and stuff later in the game. So yep, there's the Thunder Wave. Luckily, Psychic Terrain is up, maybe expecting me to switch or change terrain somehow. But we just see the Gunk Shot come out, and it doesn't quite get the KO on the Indeedee, so that is really fortunate for me. As we now see Mamoswine. So this is why I actually have Grass Knot on the Raichu. And I was afraid that my opponent might actually max the Mamoswine, so I'm going to max my Raichu here. My Raichu hasn't really taken any damage, and it can kind of deal with what's left, especially since I have Follow Me, and Raichu is still the fastest thing on the field. So we see me max my Raichu here. I am going for the max Overgrow with the Grass Knot. As you see, my opponent does not max, so unless this Mamoswine is Focus Sash, I believe it's dying. I don't even think an AV Mamo would live this. I'm not sure it could, but we do just get the one shot there with the max Overgrow, so currently I am in a very good position. Raichu, of course, is taking that Life Orb, but I did just now switch the terrain since Lipard is gone. So out comes the Miltank, and this is one mon I really didn't know what it did or what I needed to be afraid of. So right here, I actually start targeting the Obstagoon. I am just going to attack with my Indeedee. My thought was, no, I didn't attack with my Indeedee. I think I clicked Follow Me. Let's see here. The Miltank does max, so I am even more terrified now because I know this thing is decently bulky. I do end up clicking the Follow Me here. And the Max Lightning comes off into the Obstagoon, almost securing the KO there. And here comes the Max Starfall from into the Indeedee. So Indeedee is going to go down. That crit for sure didn't matter. There will be a lot of useless crits in this game. And then the Gunk Shot misses. That wasn't going to do too much to my Max Raichu. But here I do end up just going Darmanitan. This week, I'll tell you now, it is game 1, but Darmanitan was the biggest disappointment out of the mons I brought this week. So we do see the Obstruct, which is fine. I'm attacking through it. Brick Break does, if it wasn't max, it would do probably about 75 to 80%, but it doesn't do half to the Dynamax. But the Obstagoon does go down to the Raichu here, as we see the max Steel Spike. So that is either Iron Head or Steel Roller, which makes me even more terrified, since I am constantly setting terrains on my team. Then out next is just my Cobalion. I know I have this game locked. I'll just fire off a Rising Voltage and then a Close Combat into the Miltank, and it'll go down. So we do end up winning game 1 by 2. This does go to a game 3. So foreshadowing here, I do lose game 2, but it gives me the information needed to win game 1. My opponent really adapted very well. If you see, I am now leading Cobalion in DD because it deals with the 2 dark types very well. I didn't know if she would change her lead or not. But turns out that's not the case. The lead does change to a lead that I am more terrified of. So now we see the Drifblim Mamoswine. Now with the Psychic Terrain, you could Ice Shard the Drifblim, which is what I was afraid of. So this is why I'm targeting the Mamoswine, which in turn was kind of the right play. So here I am maxing the Cobalion. If you hear my cat, sorry, he's playing with a door. But I actually see a max here. I'm thinking, okay, I called this right. We're maxing the Drifblim, but no, it is actually the max Mamoswine. So at least I'm clicking follow me, and my Cobalion is physical because I almost brought special. But the Steel Spike comes out, boosting my defense, doing not quite half. And here is where we see the Tailwind, and I know I'm kind of in trouble here. Max Quake comes out. It's a crit. Doesn't matter. Without a crit, it still brings me down to red. So the Focus Sash saves me there. But we do see the special defense boost. And here I make an interesting play. I know for a fact Indeedee going to go down. And I know my Cobalion can take a Max Quake. So it looks like I'm going to hover over follow me, but I'm actually going to click Helping Hand because I was doing the calc in my head. So there's the Thunderbolt knocking out the Indeedee, which of course it would. The Max Quake comes out. I am +1, doesn't do half. So I know this will actually end up killing because he's boosting the special defense of the Mamoswine. So the Steel Spike comes out, does end up KOing the Mamoswine. So crit didn't matter. Maybe it was a roll, but looking at how much damage the first one did, I don't think it was. So out now comes my Raichu. And this is where the game gets kind of interesting. So here comes the Obstagoon. So now I know my Raichu kind of can't really deal with it. So what I'm actually going to end up doing is Rock Falling the Drifblim, seeing how much damage that'll do, and protecting my Raichu. Well, this is where I made the mistake. So Close Combat comes out, doesn't do really anything. Cobalion's physical defense is actually really nice, but I do have the Chople Berry, as we see Shadow Ball now. And I Rock Fall, does more than half, but we now see the weakness policy. So that is actually a problem. And you'll see here that I really wanted to switch out my Raichu. I knew my Raichu could kind of deal with everything that was left, other than the Obstagoon. I didn't know what was on this Obstagoon set, because all I've seen is Gunk Shot and Obstruct, and now Close Combat. So what I'm actually going to do is Close Combat into the Obstagoon, and attempt to Rising Voltage into the Drifblim. Where I made my mistake was not just doubling the Drifblim. So Shadow Ball comes out, KOs the Raichu, which is super unfortunate. Here comes the Close Combat from the Obstagoon. Like I said, I don't take much from that. And then a Close Combat of my own, you will see that the Obstagoon is carrying the Chople Berry as well. But that's a KO even if it was healthy, like doesn't have any of the drops. But now I'm in trouble. And I make another really bad play here. So Darmanitan comes out as she has the Miltank. At this point, I don't know how bulky that Miltank actually is. And I attempt to go for a Rock Slide. But because the Drifblim is unburdened, able to set the Tailwind, and we now see Steel Roller come out. I still don't know what item is on this Miltank. But we close combat, do about 75. But at this point, I know there's nothing I can do. This game is pretty much over. If Swords Dance was Protect, I maybe could have stalled it out and gotten some sand damage. But there's no way I could have won that by... I would have to get like a double Protect. Maybe even a triple, I don't know. But, so for the next game, this is fast-forwarded a little bit too far. But I am leading again with the Raichu Indeedee. I don't ever bring Flapple and Comfey. Those are really there to help me with the Kingdra matchup. But I know since I didn't see it in game 1 and 2, Inteleon's not coming. So I don't really have to play around that. But I am going back to my game 1 lead since it did work. So my opponent did end up sticking with their game 2 lead. And I feel like this lead here is a little better for me. So Raichu is initially faster than Drifblim. Drifblim doesn't have its weakness policy procced. There's no Tailwind up. And the Tailwind is what really I feel like hurt me the most in game 2. So I am putting all of my priority into that slot. So Raichu here is just going to... Oh, my opponent does end up maxing the Mamoswine, just like game 2. It's the strategy that worked. I figured my opponent would stick with it. That's why I just went back to my initial lead. So here is the follow me to take the Max Quake from the Mamoswine, but the Max Lightning is able to just KO the Drifblim. I'm guessing that was a little more physical defensive on the Drifblim, but nevertheless, it is gone. So threat 1 gone. Mamoswine is going for the Max Quake into the Indeedee. As you see, that wasn't a crit, and I lived with 11, so the crit clearly didn't matter. And out comes the Obstagoon. Not really worried about the Obstagoon, so now I'm going to start max overgrowthing into the Mamoswine. I did notice my opponent kind of got into a habit of double protecting or cycling their obstructs with the Obstagoon. So that's actually what I'm going to call out here. As the Mamoswine also protects, so this was kind of a good play. And I was really, really okay with my Indeedee dropping there. So now I go into my Darmanitan. And this is why I said Darmanitan really disappointed me this week. And I know I'm not carrying Superpower. I wanted Brick Break because I figured Darmanitan would be able to sit on the field for a good period of time and just start throwing out hits. So I'm going for the Overgrow into the Mamoswine, which that isn't AV. You'll see why here at this play. My opponent does obstruct, so I called that correctly, but here is the Overgrow. And I'm expecting this just to kill. If this was Superpower, it would have, which I guess is my mistake, but it just barely lives. I don't know if that was a roll or what, but the Max Quake actually went into Darmanitan, which I am still 100% okay with. Raichu hits like a truck. So Darmanitan's down, so I just bring in Cobalion. There's nothing that my opponent can really do to this combo that I'm afraid of. So I am just going... I don't think I actually protected here. I do think I racked off a Grass Knot into the Mamoswine. And then I'm just going to close combat the Obstagoon. Both of my Mons are faster. If you want to double into something, you can. But we see the Chople Berry, and this is going to crit, but I did the math. If my opponent had no bulk investment, if it was just max speed, max attack, which I thought it would be, that kills anyway through a Chople. So kind of unfortunate, kind of not. If they had defensive investment, it's unfortunate. Because it would have forced Cobalion to eat its Chople. But now I know the Mamoswine can't protect itself unless it wants to attempt the double. So I am just Grass Knotting into the Mamoswine and attempting to throw off a close combat again into the Miltank. So here's the close combat, does more than half. I am now at -2 defense, but I eat my Chople Berry, and that does like 25. So I would have lived it anyway without the Chople and -2. And that's pretty much GG. Miltank can't live a flurry of attacks from these two, so I'm just going to Expanding Force. Thought about Rising Voltage, wanted to make sure whichever one was stronger. And yeah, that's going to be the game. I ended up winning this game 2-0. It was very, very close. Again, I don't know if it's me or my opponents matching up well against Darmanitan, like always prepping for it, but I need to learn to use Darmanitan a little bit better. My playstyle is hyper offensive with setup support, but Darmanitan is like the penessential mon to hyper offense, and I'm just not using it correctly or using it well. I don't know. For my opponent next week, I am going to maybe bring it. I don't know yet, but I will sit down and figure out how to actually use it. So now we are sitting at 4-0 plus like 15, 16, something like that. We are, I think, one of only 2 teams that are undefeated through week 4. I'm the only person who played week 4. But season's looking really well. We are at the top of the standings, and hopefully we stay there for the rest of the season. But without further ado, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.